explode me. Give it all to me. Give it all to me. Explode me. Explode me. Give it all to 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 me. Let me give it all to me. You make me feel like I've got dynamite inside. You make me feel so free. I can't wait till you're here by my side. Light that fire in me. Give it all to me. Give it all to me. Give it all to me. Let me give it all to me. Explode me. Explode me. Give it all to me. Give it all to me.
Hello and welcome to Gaming Lockdown and Me, a panel discussion brought to you as part of YouTube Gaming Week by me. I'm Jane Douglas of the YouTube channel Outside Xbox.
And I am Ellen Rose, a editor and creator for Outside Extra, the sister channel to Outside Xbox. And we make loads of videos every week, don't we, Jane?
Yeah, that's right. We know each other from beforehand.
Hi.
And hello to everyone in the chat. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Come on in, get settled down, get comfortable. It's going to be a great time. We're delighted to be joined by a panel of amazing content creators and games industry professionals.
Yeah, should we introduce them, Jane?
Let's do a little mini intro and then let them do it properly. Okay.
Yeah, well, first up, we've got the lovely Shay Thompson. She is a presenter and the founder of Level Up Link Up.
Then we've got Anissa Sanusi, who is a games industry professional. She's a UI designer and also founder of the Limit Break Mentorship, which I'm excited to talk about.
And then we have Stella Wang, who is CEO and co-founder of Dazzle Rocks, making lots of exciting games.
And finally, excitingly, we've got Molly, aka the English Simmer, who is a YouTube gaming content creator, as many of you well might already know. And here they are. Look who it is.
Welcome,
all those
everyone.
people in the room. Hi, thank you for coming. I mean, thank you for being here, everybody, on this. Shall we do some proper intros, Ellen?
Yeah, I think so. Let's kick it off with Shay. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, sure thing. So hi, I'm Shay. I'm a presenter in the games industry. Started a little over 2 years ago. And yeah, you usually find me talking about various types of games, usually sim racing or fighting games. And yeah, when I started the industry, I noticed that there was a distinct lack of racial diversity. So I set up Level Up Link Up to help address that.
Cool. So what do you do with Level Up Link Up? What does that entail?
So it's usually a set of like monthly events where I have like an industry professional come and talk about their experiences, talk about their job, so that people aspiring to sort of enter the industry in similar positions can, ask them advice, give them like tangible tips on, what they can do with like their CV and stuff. And, just give people a safe space to kind of ask those questions without feeling shamed to or anything like that. And then like during the lockdown, sort of had to like rejig things a little bit, which, we'll get onto, but started like a very, very informal like mentorship scheme as well.
Cool.
I love it. I love it so much. Anissa, speaking of mentorship, tell us about what you do and what you're all about and how's it been going?
Hi, so I'm Anissa. In my day job in the games industry, I do UI UX design. Previously, I've worked on PC games and mobile games, and currently I'm working on super secret PlayStation 5 game. Ooh. And in my free time, I started up Limit Break Mentorship, which is a mentorship program for underrepresented genders in the games industry, specifically in the whole of the UK. We've been running for about 2 years now, and on our second year, we had about 300 applicants from all over the UK, and it's been an amazing reception. Just shows that how much people really want mentorship and how many people, veterans specifically, who really want to give back to the industry. It's kind of like putting down the ladder behind you as you go up. So yeah, it's been really interesting during lockdown because our first year, everything was in person. We had events in London, but because of lockdown, we're all fully remote now. And I've actually connected quite a lot of people, say from further up north or in Ireland to people here in London, people down south and things like that. And it's been really interesting getting to know people from not just the London industry, but also just everywhere in the UK.
I think that's going to be really interesting to talk about, like the opportunities that going online and doing everything remotely has provided, as well as the challenges. So next up, Ellen.
Next up, Stella, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Stella. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Dazzle Rocks. It's a Helsinki-based game company. We're working on a very exciting title, as you can see the background poster a little bit farther away. It's a sandbox MMO game for virtual environments for creators to create entertainment for the community. As you guys know, that today our topic is about lockdown, talking about pandemic, the new situation. So definitely a lot of conversation around social and gaming, how that would change in the future.
Mm-hmm. So you would describe the content that you're making as a social MMO. How would you explain that to someone who might not know what that is?
Well, as you guys can know that I think one of the most famous title for MMOs is World of Warcraft. And a lot of people is actually thinking that it's just about raid, but actually most people spend majority of the time chatting with each other, building things. As you guys also know, the Animal Crossing, people go beyond just a platform, go to social media, create Excel sheet, trading and talking with each other. So definitely there's something about social. It's just not about the ranking anymore. It's about how you connect with people with a zero distance, how you can actually build the contents, how you can actually have a graduation or also like a lively entertainment on the game platform. So that's actually our mission for Dazzle Rocks.
Excellent.
Super cool. And I'm really glad that we got the first Animal Crossing mention in like 6 minutes in. I'm really pumped to talk more about Animal Crossing. Molly, aka the English Simmer, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the kind of stuff you make.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. My name's Molly. I go by the English Simmer online, and as you can probably guess from that, it entails a lot of me playing The Sims. I have massive story-based Let's Plays about The Sims and heavily focused on LGBTQ+ content, creating a community around that that's just like super supportive and welcoming of everyone. And I also play other games such as cutesy life simulations, farming sims, and action adventure like choice-based games. So just a lot of gaming on my channel, daily content.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Also, how long have you been doing that for?
So I've been doing this is my 7th year of it. So in December it will be my 7th year, which is crazy to say.
That makes you a legit veteran YouTuber, I think
Yeah,
to say.
It's wild.
And you were saying before that it doesn't feel like 7 years that you've been doing it.
Not at all. I mean, I started it in my 2nd year of university, just watching other people play The Sims. And I was like, I've been playing this since I was a kid. Like, I've always watched YouTube. So I was like, I could do a Sims channel. And yeah, it's just led to opportunities like this. It's been a wild ride.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think we heard from Stella. Stella's in Helsinki. Whereabouts are you, Molly?
I'm in Manchester.
Manchester. And Shay, whereabouts are you? Just so we check in with everyone geographically.
I am in sunny North London, Tottenham specifically. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. I'm also in London for what it's worth. And Anissa, whereabouts are you?
I'm in the very far east of London. Very, very exotic over here.
Nice.
Fellow Londoner as well here. So
Okay. So like Stella mentioned, we've got a light lockdown theme for today's discussion, or at least that's how we're going to kick off. I think it's unavoidable, the theme of lockdown and the topic of lockdown and everything these days, you know, is in the context of the wild, strange times that we've had for the last several months. So let's start with something a little casual. Like, how has it affected the way you actually play games yourself? Like, what have you been playing and how has it changed the way you play for your enjoyment, let's say? Who wants to go first? Shay?
I will, because I when I, like everybody else, when Animal Crossing came out, I was like, this is going to be my life for the next X amount of time.
Yep.
And I actually, it's kind of weird. I got into like some kind of unhealthy habits where I was playing it. I felt like a need to play it, like rather than like a want. So I'd wake up, log in every single day, and it's kind of weird. It's a two-edged sword. Like that's the saying, right? Two-edged sword. In that, like it sort of gave me a structure, but then the structure became like really negative. There was one day where I played it for like 10 hours, and I was like, you know, like I think my Switch died, and I saw my face like in the reflection of the Switch. You look horrendous. Go outside.
Black Mirror episode.
So I mean, but once I realized that, it was like I was able to kind of snap out of that habit quite quickly. But yeah, I mean, it went on for a stupid amount of time, if I'm being honest.
Oh, I mean, it was such a strange time. I feel like whatever worked is fine. Like if it worked for you at the moment at that time, then that's fine. Whatever gets you through the day in that moment.
Of course, man. Yeah.
Who else has been playing what over the last few months?
Oh, well, my usual gaming habits is quite solo because I really like really long JRPGs just by myself. But during lockdown, I realized that a lot of my non-traditionally gaming friends are, you know, they really want that social connection. So they're just like, what can we do? So this is where, like, I think throughout 2 or 3 different friendship circles, we're all playing Jackbox TV. You know, where you're playing a game on your phone and then everyone's just shouting at each other or just things like that. And yeah, it's one of those things where like usually I don't connect to these certain friends using video games, but during lockdown, that is like the best way. Like we all say like, oh, let's go to the pub. But the pub meaning let's get on Zoom, and I'm the only person with a Steam account. So let's get Jackbox TV up and we all just have a really good laugh. So yeah.
Yeah, like Anissa, I've been playing a lot of Jackbox, again, with friends like from university and like school friends who never have really had an interest in gaming. The push the button one where you all have to like pretend if you're an alien or not. It's caused some strange arguments. Like my parents are like, why were you just shouting alien at the top of your voice till like 4 a.m? So I've been doing a lot of that. Also more recently, Fall Guys. Thoroughly obsessed, and again it's kind of hit a wider audience than people I would expect to play games. So my friends have been texting me like, Molly, how many wins do you have? Like, can we play together? And we've all been carrying each other in Fall Guys, so that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, Animal Crossing has been a go-to as well.
Such like a comfort game, just like the perfect comfort game. Couldn't
exactly. Just forget that the world's on fire and just chill out with your neighbors and just design your own world. It's been great.
Sorry, I thought you said Fall Guys was a comfort game. Like, it's not comforting at all.
It's very much the opposite of that, I think.
No, very violent on that game.
You were playing that on Friday, weren't you, Ellen? On the channel.
Yes, yeah. I had Andy from Outside Xbox and lovely Elle Sillywood joined us, and we had a lot of fun. And it's one of those games where you like we were really kind of like ribbing each other as well, but also cheering for each other because you can like all team up, but you're kind of like you still want to be the one that wins it technically. But it's a lot of fun, and just like the noises of frustration that people make, like you didn't know that people were capable of those noises, but you said there's this Elle was pointing out how I made some very interesting noises, and my habit is I do this in so many games where if my character jumps I have to go huh, in real life.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You get a little bit of height. I think you get like 20% more height if you do the little sound.
It's been measured. Yeah. But,
It's just physics, mate.
yeah, exactly. Stella, how have your gaming habits been changed or the same?
Well, as a benefit of being a game developer, you basically play like from day to night. Not only you play, you watch how people play. And so, but one thing I played recently is actually the Fitbit, the game, the Fit Ring for the Nintendo, and that. Yes, and it took me a few weeks to finally get exactly. it took me a few weeks, to actually get the order because it was completely sold out. It was one of those games that was like, wow, yes,
So
that
fun.
one.
I've actually got one, everyone.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that you never thought about. Wow, gaming can be so fun when you worked out. And it's actually really, really good during this time period. And of course, I've been watching a lot of watching other people playing games, and also how people are screaming, like you guys said, and also Fall Guy. Yeah, and also very interesting. I start to see that a lot of people are giving gift, and it's more active on the gaming channel, giving gift rewards and then interact with the creator. I guess Molly definitely can feel the spike of the participants. So. Lots of interesting going on recently.
Has it changed the way you approach your game, the way you're building your social MMO?
Well, we were actually in a good timing, but also on the other hand, we also, because of this pandemic, we actually reprioritize our features. For example, when we look at how players play, it used to be chatting, but now we realize, just like Alan said, that you like to hear people's voice about when they're playing games. So we definitely did some prototype on the voice chat, and also when because now our team is actually remote working. So when we test the game, there's a lot of features you cannot communicate. But how do you do that as a more intuition, more exaggeration, move, animation? I think Fall Guy really done really well on this kind of very exaggerated moment. So I think definitely the sensation of how do you bring the virtual world feel like other players just right in front of you has been one of the theses that we've been looking at. So definitely when we are kind of prioritize the features, we bring those like more forward. Yeah.
There's definitely improvements to be made. I've played online Animal Crossing, and there's definitely a more perfect multiplayer experience out there for like social multiplayer.
Yeah.
No offense, Animal Crossing.
I think that was actually where our opportunity come from, because when I saw a lot of people doing Excel sheets and doing the check, and then also like taking photo of all the things they built, I was like, wow, people really go beyond to do that. And I can also see a lot of people who did the modeling themselves, just they want to show the Animal Crossing creator that, hey, can someone create this for me? I remember Japan has a Sakura season, Animal Crossing, and then a lot of people was asking, can I trade these things for the Japan region and all these things? So it's definitely missing a lot of opportunity to have social gaming as a platform inside the game instead just a game. Yeah. And that's where
that you get, like when someone leaves your island, and if there are a whole bunch of people on there, I'm just like, this is so counterproductive to a social experience. Like, come on, guys. Oh.
Yeah, before I knew the Nintendo app existed so you could type, I was like struggling with the in-game keyboard. Like, it takes me like half an hour just to write thank you to someone.
Yeah, if you actually think about it, that Nintendo, you're playing the game on the device, and then you're chatting with other player on another platform, and then you're talking with your phone with other people. So you could basically need a 3 device in one to play the game. It's very interesting.
Really,
I feel like the fact that we made it work is like testament to how much we enjoy the game, but also how much we want to socialize. You know, how far we're willing to go, basically. Speaking of the way the last several months lockdown has changed the way you work and create, like Molly, has it changed your like workflow as a content creator?
I've been busier. I mean, I've had people like asking me questions, obviously, like, oh, how's it affecting you? Like, what's the lockdown doing? I think a lot of people, feel like the world was on pause for a while, like with a lot of people going on furlough and stuff. And obviously, because this isn't a very traditional job, like I'm working from my bedroom all day, every day anyway. So I feel like people have definitely become more creative, especially on like the studio side of things for like sponsorship opportunities and like testing out new games and features and stuff and how they go about that. Like they've transitioned it to online, and so it's opening doors in a way that I've never really seen happen as a content creator. Like usually you go to in-person events. And then on the other side of it, when it comes to the community, like recently I've seen such an influx of people just wanting to consume content of games that you would have never really initially seen. So yeah, I've been trying to pump out just as much content as possible and trying to interact with my community, because it's really cool to see like the same faces in my comments and like coming back each part and really getting into the stories that I'm telling. So it's been nice to see the community grow together. I mean, my Discord has been so active since March, and you can see that that's because people are just wanting that socialization and something to entertain them. So it's really nice to see everyone just making friends through gaming.
For sure. Actually, the element of game previews that you mentioned, we've experienced that at Outside Xbox and Outside Extra as well. And I guess this bears a little bit of explanation. When we play games pre-launch, normally we go physically to a game event being hosted somewhere, and we play the game there. And we go to them, and they have the code. And for the first time ever, it sounds like you're experiencing the same thing. We're being invited to play these games remotely streamed. Yeah. Which I think is a really interesting adaptation.
Yeah, I really hope that like with this being able to like test it in these circumstances, like hopefully studios will be able to offer more people that opportunity and kind of widen, like, because obviously it's very expensive to fly people in from all over the world. They usually have a set number that they're allowed to invite, and therefore there's a lot of people, amazing creators, who are unfortunately left out. So I'm hoping that this kind of gives people the chance to be able to open that up to a wider audience and more people get that opportunity to see early access games and give feedback. I think it's really cool. I think there's some exciting stuff that's going to come from it.
Exactly. I think it would be an excellent beneficial side effect if it brings down some barriers to content creators that can't get to these events.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, like in a very physical form, where like if you are a creator who's disabled and you can't go to events that don't have, say, ramps or anything like that, or they just don't support you, this has completely like given you kind of like even the platform for everybody. Yeah, kind of like giving you a chance to do things that you could never before. Even with game dev specifically as well, like to me at least, I think the next big thing in games is accessibility. Not just people playing the games, but people streaming the games as well, and also like people getting into game dev and helping out on that accessibility front, where I think a lot of bigger companies are hiring accessibility specialists specifically for that. And I think I hope that lockdown has kind of opened the eyes and opened the barrier a bit more, because clearly we do miss physical events, but it's not like a need, No,
exactly. I remember once on one of the many occasions where I explained my job to my parents, and my dad would say, "But why do you need to fly anywhere? Isn't this all digital?" And you're like, "Yes, Dad, that's an excellent point." So finally it makes sense to him. So Ellen, you were talking about oh, sorry, Shay.
Go on, Shay. No, I was just gonna say, we don't technically need like physical spaces, but when the lockdown started, I was like, what am I going to do for money? like it's usually I go to like studios physically to sort of like, present, but I was like, how does that work from home? So I ended up like changing the sort of work that I do. I ended up doing like a lot more producery type stuff, and I was like, producer, I don't even know her. That's a terrible RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yes.
Oh my god!
But actually, one thing I found out very interesting is when we are actually thinking about the virtual space, because originally the game concept we have is provide a creative power for all the creator. But then we start to think that what would be interesting functions for player to initiate the entertainment. For example, let's say if you can actually have a firework event and you have all the community gathering, what if you have some tea party? So how do we actually create that freedom for player to actually build their entertainment in more relatable world? And I realized that one thing I found this a bit missing opportunity is even though we most of people stay at home right now, but if you imagine that you cannot take your computer or big device out when you're actually playing this kind of virtual world, it would be really nice to actually have on the mobile space. So that's actually one thing that I feel that the mobile space could have a lot more real-time entertainment that you can engage with the player.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point about handheld, because even though I've been at home almost permanently for the last several months, I've been playing way more handheld stuff and obviously spending infinite time on my mobile.
Yeah. I've been playing a lot of Switch, like we were talking about Animal Crossing. And the big bonus for me of it being handheld is I'm one of the lucky people that literally couldn't leave the house. I've been out my house twice for the past few months. So to try and make sure that I was exercising, I had my phone in my pocket counting my steps, and I was walking from my front door to my back door back and forth, just doing little daily things in Animal Crossing, fishing and stuff. And I managed to do 10,000 steps doing that. What? Because I had the freedom. Yeah, because I had the freedom of being able to walk around with it. And I'm that made such a difference, because I've also been playing other games. So other big games like The Last of Us, all these big games came out and I was playing, and I found that I felt guilty because I was sitting still playing.
I feel really guilty now that you just said you've done 10,000 steps.
I haven't done it for a while. I've dropped off Animal Crossing and I'm jumping back in again because I realized I've not done my walking because I associated it so much with the game. So yeah,
I think I did Ring Fit once at the start of lockdown. I was like, right, this is it. I'm gonna get into Ring Fit. I'm gonna do it every day. I pulled a muscle in my shoulders and I was like, no, that's it.
Surprisingly difficult, isn't it? It just looks friendly. It's oh, anyone can do this, and I do. I'm just a puddle of on the floor.
You see your squat numbers and you're just how have I just squatted 109 times? What's going on?
I wanted to follow up on something that Anissa was talking about, sort of about accessibility and how we can make the way we work or the way we play less Londonist as well as more accessible. Because Ellen, we were talking recently about how there is a challenge, I think, in the UK, let's say, for YouTubers who aren't based in an urban centre, like perhaps London. Molly, you might have an experience here of how sometimes it can seem important to have access to London, and maybe that's not the case so much now.
Yeah, so again, it kind of comes back to opening it up to more geolocations, I guess. But I felt it. I recently was living in Blackpool, but I've moved back home to Manchester, and even an hour away from Manchester, the trains aren't that great. I'd either have to drive back home to get a train from Manchester to London. Luckily, that's only 2 hours, so London is still quite accessible for me. But when I was in university in Newcastle, if EA London, Guildford were oh yeah, we're holding an event, I'd have to get the train at 5 a.m, arrive there for 10, play for 8 hours, record all my content, and then travel back up on a 3-4 hour train. So it's definitely, you feel as if it's very London based. I think every UK event I've been to has been a London event.
Yeah, even in game dev particularly, that's the it's a huge talking point, definitely, because a lot of the say EGX or anything or the BAFTAs, everything like that is usually in London. I mean, there are BAFTAs in Scotland and Wales actually, but it's not as much and not as often, or sometimes not as big as London. And again, a lot of my northern friends who are from Newcastle or Edinburgh or Dundee, they're I'm not going to pay £100-something just to go down, for one event. Again, it does lock out a lot of people, even from a socioeconomic situations where not all of people in London are paid more, but the cost of living here is so high that it's difficult anyway. And imagine if you're outside of London and whatever you're paid for is fine, but if you're having to spend that much of disposable income just trying to get from point A to point B, like you're already at a disadvantage. I bet a lot of people would say no to certain events just because of that, and it is a bit unfair, like just purely based on where you live. And this is just people in England/Scotland. What about those in Northern Ireland? They're like way over there, and they're just like, hey, remember us? We exist, And I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, since opening up Limit Break to outside of just London, a lot I've actually gotten DMs from people from Ireland being like, thank you so much for doing this. Like, everyone usually forgets that we're part of the UK as well. We have like a thriving game dev community here as well, but we're always so detached from everybody else. And I just felt, my heart just went, oh no, you're still part of us. We're all like one big industry. We gotta lift each other up. But yeah, being too sappy there, I'm sorry.
No, be sappy, it's fine.
So you've sort of been forced to move into this like remote. Let's talk about Limit Break actually. Now that you're talking about Limit Break, your mentorship initiative. It sounds like you've had a mix of remote and in-person sort of mentoring, but now it's gone presumably like entirely remote. Is that the case?
Yeah. And the plan was never to make it remote, but lockdown happened, so you adapt, right? And there's really good benefits from that, in a sense that some of my mentors who are, say, London-based, they've mentioned like, oh, usually if I choose a mentee, so I usually let the mentors choose their mentees. I don't choose people for other people. Like, I don't know everyone that well, but the mentors, they're like, oh, if it wasn't for a lockdown, I probably would have chosen someone who lives in the same city as me so we can meet up with each other. But because of lockdown, they're like, okay, let's go for somebody from outside of London, who's a bit more like personality-wise or career, wherever they are in the career, like, they can help that specific person at that point. And I've got some people who are like, oh, my mentee is all the way up north, and like I love her, like she's amazing. I wish, like, I can't imagine if this hadn't happened, how could she gotten the help that she needed, things like that. And yeah, a lot of them tend to say, I would say like the negative side of this is that the thing with mentorship is that you kind of help them out in person events as well. Sometimes it's good to have a person in an event literally physically with you, because safety is one thing that we need to know, and the other thing is also kind of like the thing about our industry is who you know rather than what you know. And sometimes you just need that literal introduction. It's like, hi, have you met so-and-so? And then, you kind of start talking and da-da-da. Like, a lot of these connections happen offline, interestingly. So it's a mixed bag of like, some things have gotten better because of lockdown, but other things, specifically networking, is a bit more difficult.
Yeah, speaking of networking, like Shay, that's kind of what what Level Up Link Up is trying to do. How have you had to adapt with lockdown and trying to actually make networking happen?
So yeah, I mean, a big part of our events is they are networking events. We get industry professionals in, so people who want to work in similar roles can like ask them like advice and stuff. But with the lockdown, that's not a thing. So it was like the one other person I sort of run it with, we were like, so what do we do? Like, how do we sort of bring this online? And it's great when people are able to sort of bring stuff online, but we were kind of like, I'm burnt out on like the pandemic and stuff. Like, this is not like an extended sort of summer holiday for me. I'm like really tired. So we were like, we'll cool it on the sort of like networking front, and what we'll do is we'll sort of take on like mentors. We sort of like opened up our DMs and stuff and really kind of took the time to sit with people. And at first I was like, what am I doing this for? Like, I am literally a bozo. Like, I have no advice to give. But I found that actually, just having for other people, having somebody like me, an industry professional, to bounce ideas off of, ended up being really useful, which is very surprising.
That sounds like sorry.
Oh no, but I think it's you don't realize how much you know until you start telling someone about it. I think is the real thing.
Absolutely,
Like,
had some major imposter syndrome over that. Like, yeah.
Oh my gosh! Speaking of imposter syndrome, just because I have so much to say about this, because since running Limit Break, 80% of my job is literally to tell people, especially women, senior women in the industry, hey, you know your stuff. You are good at what you do. You have so much to give back. A lot of them are just like, I don't know anything, or like, yeah, sure, maybe. Again, you would think the imposter syndrome is in the mentees, but it's mostly in the mentors. And I'm just like, everybody, you're great. You can do it. And I'm just in the background being like, you can do it. You can do it. You know?
That's exactly what I heard when Shay was like, I'm just some bozo, I don't know. But it's hard to know how much you have to offer until you look into that stuff.
Exactly. That's the feedback that I got mostly. Like I would every so often ask, how's things going? How's you and your mentee? And they're just like, yeah, so we sat down and I wasn't sure if I can say anything. And then we just started talking for like 2 hours straight. I was like, see, you know your stuff, like without realizing your experiences will just come out. And like, especially if somebody is new to the industry, especially if they're students or like just year one, like there's so many like basic things that you've kind of learned on the job you don't realize is a thing that you can impart as knowledge to people. Yeah,
I think there are some really interesting, really useful things to be learned from that kind of initiative, which is for games industry professionals. There should be some transferable things for YouTube content creators. I feel like mentorship.
It's all the same thing.
Yeah,
like no matter what
exactly.
industry you're doing, if you're a creative person, especially if you're a woman, this is what I've sensed. Like women or non-binary people, or even like trans people as well, because they're like they're more marginalized in our industry. The confidence levels is so low. They're constantly self-doubting, and like again, 80% of my job is literally to push them and be like, you can do this. You are, your experiences are valid, your knowledge is valid, and what you say matters. A lot of them think like, oh, I don't know what I can contribute, or I don't know what my voice is worth. And I'm like, your voice is worth you. You are everything. You are exactly what other people outside the industry are looking in and thinking, wow, I want to do what you do. You're literally working in your dream job, your dream industry. So like, work it, man. Just do it.
I think smaller content creators in particular might find that really useful because I think for some people, being a YouTube content creator can be something, at least initially, of like an isolating experience, because it is like a solo practice for the most part. Is that how you found it early on, Molly? Like, what's it like for you early on?
Yeah, so I definitely didn't find it as isolating for me personally, just because of like when I started and where I was in my life. So I was in university and I was living in a house full of 7 other people, which is really hard to sit down and record. Like you're yelling at your Sims and then you just hear someone like stomping down the corridor. So I felt like I was living like a Hannah Montana life. Like I was doing university and like I was trying to write my dissertation and stuff. But then on the other hand, like I was also like had this like part-time job at the time, and people didn't really understand it. They were like, how are you playing The Sims? Like, that's so cool, but also like, who the heck is watching you like sit and talk to virtual people? So yeah, it definitely felt like this disconnect, but I basically went into it like, I want to make friends. Like if I get anything out of creating content, I want to like become closer friends with the Sims community and people who are already making videos. So I kind of just went into it with the idea of I'm going to start a Twitter. So I started a Twitter probably 6 months before starting my YouTube channel. And then by the time I had started my channel, I had like 50 subscribers without posting a video, because I had just like made all these friends online and they were like, oh, you're starting a channel? Okay, I'll give you a sub. And that was really nice. And then from there, like I have met some of my best friends. And it's tough in this situation that we're in now, because I feel like we aren't meeting as often as we would. Like usually we'd be lucky enough to be invited to events held by EA, and it's like meeting up with my Sims fam like every like twice a year, like EA Play, and then also usually when an expansion is released. Whereas now we're kind of making that effort without those. So we're getting on Zoom more and we're like catching up and we're celebrating people's birthdays. So I feel like I've seen them more this year because we're actually putting in the effort. So even though it's quite isolating and you're sat in your room by yourself talking to a camera, I think this has kind of encouraged us to be like, okay, we're all sat by our computers. Like, why are we not hanging out more? Like we aren't relying on those in-person events. So we're just putting more effort into like our friendships offline, which has been really, really nice.
I
So
really
yeah,
like that point, because on the sort of like media side of the industry, like there is, I guess, this perception that we're all in like competition with each other, like nudging each other out of the way to kind of get jobs. And like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, we're not in competition. Like, this stuff is like hard as it is, you know, like we don't need to sort of fight with each other. So like a crucial part of my journey into the industry was like sort of making friends and, you know, having people like that I really like and really enjoy hanging out with to like rely on and like ask for advice and things like that. And yeah, it doesn't have to be a sort of rat race straight to the bottom, you know?
yeah, it's such an important part of
Yeah.
it. Like, I feel the most inspired when I've hung out with my friends who do the same job as me and like who create content. I get home from events like VidCon and stuff, and I'm just like, wow, I have all of these ideas running through my head. Like, I want to create so much. And that's just from bouncing ideas off each other and being like, well, what's working for you right now? What's not going so well? And it really is like collaborative, even though it's not collaborative on screen. And we do play a very solo game. It's collaborative in the like sense of we all are constantly encouraging each other to improve and like also questioning each other, like, oh, is that not working so well for you? How about you try this or that? So that's what I really love about just getting to hang out with my mates.
Yeah, exactly the same with game dev as well. We've got like a huge community where game devs kind of share information with each other. Like there's no secret, like there's no secret sauce, you know. If there is, we are sharing the recipe with everybody because we just want to help each other, you know. And oh, I was going to say something. Oh, yeah. So, like, one of the things that I tend to tell younger girls is that you should definitely shed off the "I'm not like other girls" persona. You know, the whole like, I am not like them, or I'm so better because X, Y, and Z. That's not true in a sense that like everybody's unique, and you know, you're also unique. You got your own qualities, but it's very dangerous to be, I would say, envious or jealous of the other party. There's always somebody doing something better than you, but what you take from that is you learn from it and you encourage that. And I bet you, if you talk to the person who is supposedly successful in your eyes, if you talk to them, they'll probably tell you like, "Oh, I failed like 98% of the time. This is the one time it looks good, and I'm tweeting about it and I'm Instagramming about it. But most of the time, we're failing." And you know what? They're always really free and open to share that failing with you. Like, I did this and it was bad. You shouldn't do it. Like, you know, like I want the best for you as well. And that's been my experience with a lot of the other women in games as well. Like, we just want to see each other get better at what we do.
For sure.
Stella, how have you found it like in game dev world and not having events? Has it changed the way that you work or?
Well, I found that Shay and Lisa and also Molly have given very inspired conversation. And also, while they were talking, I was just reflecting how we actually, as a team, deal with pandemic. So I think we start to do the remote working in March, and at that time we have kind of one thing that we have 3 channels. One channel is always on, so for people feel like they're still in office. So they basically kind of chatting, talking with each other, and working with each other. At that time, we kind of say that it's not obligated, but I realized that there are roughly around 70–80% people who hang around on the video, just like how Molly engaged with the fans. I kind of feel that people use the time to feel that they're engaged with the other team member. And I also found something really interesting. As you guys know, the game developer, stereotypically, they're much more introvert. But actually, during the pandemic time, people's communication skill have improved. And people are much more okay with the camera, and people are much more outspoken. And also, people are much more sharing what they're doing, showing their cats, showing things in their house, their kids. So it's a lot more like, even though it's distance-wise, it's physical distance quite far, but the mentality-wise, people kind of keep it together. And I do see that the virtual conference really helped a lot on that sense. And about the kind of team growing, and also, for example, we close around in February, and it's a very unusual time for a company in the growing stage because we have to do hiring. We have to expand the team. And hiring in this time and also interviewing people is very different. And there's no like a manual you can read what you can do during this virtual working hour. But I also realized because of that, we used to only look for full-time employee, full-time team member stationed in Helsinki. But now we actually open to more opportunity. For example, we actually have USA artists starting today. We actually able to open up more time zone because the team was actually much more tailor-made to work remote. And how do we actually have the check-in time, check-out time, saying goodbye, this kind of things we normally don't do. So I have to say that the pandemic time period really bring a different side of working model. And I do see that a lot of people probably asking that, will we feel that this is going to be the new normal? I do think that this is kind of adding on more skill sets for the team member to work cross-discipline. If you think that in the small company like us, we are 16, 17, you have our tech front end, back end, you have all the discipline, how you actually present the idea in the virtual space, how do you actually discuss development? I think this is a chance for the team to grow the communication skill and cross-discipline skill. So I do see a lot of good positive side, but it's also a lot of organizing in the background on that side. Yeah.
How much of it?
Can I just say really quickly,
Yeah.
like on the envious bit, like I am really, really envious of people with house pets these days. Just like every Zoom call, someone has a cute dog or a cat. I was like, I want a pet.
Can I just say, I'm really admiring everyone's plants. Like, I'm really jealous. I've got like one sad little plant there, and just everyone like just looks so good.
These are
Typical
my
millennial, no
like-
pets, but yeah, we got
Yeah.
All the plants.
Not to interrupt the flow, I'm just going to jump in here because the producers would like to remind everyone that there is going to be a Q&A portion at the end of the panel. So if you have any questions, we've already had some, in fact, and I might break out in a minute. But if you have any more questions, then feel free to drop it in the chat. We appreciate all your questions, and we will give them a look shortly. So yes, but back to the plant talk. I love everyone's plants. I have a sad succulent off to one side here that is definitely not coming on camera because it's not ready for prime time. But I don't have a pet either, so I guess I got to work harder on the plants.
Get plants
as a substitute.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, if they die, don't worry, they don't have feelings.
No, hey,
Oh, controversial.
controversial. No,
I
we
know
don't
Shay
expect
talks
that
to
talk in this
herself,
house.
so yeah.
Don't worry, she can't hear. They can't hear you.
I'll send a sorry card to you.
To the plants.
To the plants.
I'm going to drop a question in here because it does relate. The nerd, not to plants, but to what we were talking about before. The Nerd Council says, the question is, will this current form of gaming and socializing continue or be elevated if things go back to normal? So how much of this stuff we're talking about, socializing and gaming and working, how much of it do you think you will keep? Or can you just not wait to go back to doing things exactly as they were before? I think we've kind of covered a little bit of this already.
Well, one thing I realized is the past few months, I actually have attended more conference than I used to be because, everything's on digital format. A lot of conference I used to not able to make it, or it's just due to the flying schedule or time zone. Now, I feel like almost every other day there's a virtual conference. I think this will be one of the new changes. I don't think this will go away because a lot of people really like it. You can actually kind of jump into the call and then look in a conference, and then you can also share with your colleague about the newest trends. So it's not so isolated. I do think that part of things will be kind of an improvement for future for everybody around the world to participate. So that's one thing. I do think the socializing would change quite rapidly after this period. The other day I was reading an article about the post-pandemic. Like, we don't know how long this lockdown will be. Hopefully it's ending soon. But it does make a difference that people used to not be able to be socializing with a stranger or be in the virtual world or actually spending time building this virtual community. Now people start to get used to that. So I do feel that this is actually going to be a new normal forward for the gaming industry.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see some kind of hybrid between the two. I know loads of people, especially like in game dev, are talking about, I think like Bossa Studios went completely like remote. And I think that stuff is great, but I don't want to go like too far into it because I think, especially when we were talking about like the London stuff, I know everyone's like, we need to decentralize London as a hub. But I think like, I don't know, I feel like we need to, yeah, there needs to be some sort of balance, because if we then like, you know, try and make everything online, or if we move it to different places, we do lose like a lot of diversity that tends to be like centralized in a lot of these hubs. And like, you know, a lot of events are sort of already inaccessible to so many different types of people, especially who exist on the margins. And I think if we go completely online, we do lose a lot of that. Like a podcast I'm producing at the moment, we're talking about like, you know, there's like a lot of learning through play and like game-based learning. And like, yes, it's good to have these things, but when you veer off too far into the other side, you end up like cutting a lot of people off, which is ironic because the whole point is to be accessible. So I'd like to see a sort of hybrid between, you know, like more like digital events, but then, you know, sort of retaining that social, like in real life social element, also because seeing people in person gives me endorphins and I love it. So yeah.
I definitely agree with that, especially with studios. One of the studios that I used to work at actually does part-time remote work and part-time in studio. So you get 2 days work from home and 3 days work in the studio. And to me, that was like the perfect balance of like, I need some time to myself just to like head down, do the work, you know, like bam, 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 get your stuff out. And then other times you really do need to see your colleagues and just the people, because you know you work with them like 40 hours a week every day, so you want to have a good relationship with them, and some things just are just better off in person, and you getting to know people and things like that. And like on the whole front of like, that company is based in London, a lot of the employees are actually living outside of London because you don't need to come in every day, so you're allowed to have like a cheaper life. I can't find a word, that outside of London. Yeah. And I think it would be really cool if that was happening literally elsewhere in the country as well. Like you said, you know, what if a company's in Manchester, but you can live like an hour away outside of it, you know, and your cost of living, that's the word, cost of living. Your cost of living is so much lower, and suddenly like it's way more accessible. Yeah. So with the pandemic, like boss are going like partially remote and partially in studio. I think that, and my previous company, which is called Hutch, by the way, I think that is how it should be. Like moving forward, you give your employees the choice to be. Some people just want to come in every day, and that's fine. Some people, you know, childcare and things like that, things that cost a lot of money, they might prefer it the other way, you know.
Yeah, there's one activity we did because the past 6 months has been longer lockdown for most of our team member. Like only like 1/3 of our team member walk to the office because they live around office. So actually, the past week, we actually took the whole team for a summer retreat, 3 nights, 2 nights and 3 days. And I remember looking at them, and then they were just, you know, it's kind of funny. They're still playing game in the cottage. They're playing board game and playing all the things, and we try really hard to get them outside to the forest and the lake. But when I see how they kind of interact with each other, I do see that they really miss, like even though they're always hang out on the conference call in the digital format, they really miss each other, engaging with each other. We do feel that so from the company perspective, a couple of things we do. We do a lot of virtual events. In the beginning, there's one virtual event, a funny story. The management team, we were kind of thinking that we're going to order food for everybody so we can eat together. But we didn't calculate the distance and everything. So it ended up to be, some people get the food 3 hours ago, some people get the food 3 hours later. So we all are staring at the food in the conference call. So I have to say that was kind of a good intention, but wrongly executed. And so we also tried like kind of, you prepare your own beer. We also send this kind of care package, and you can eat the food and play game together. I do think that the new way of a pandemic, from kind of company perspective, of course you need to kind of measurement on the safety, but also there's a lot of virtual things you can do together. Like our team always schedule like Thursday night, gaming night, and they play, and they will kind of live on the Discord, and then we'll just watch from there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Anissa, sorry, not to interrupt, but I think Anissa made a very good point about accessibility. And I think this goes like beyond gaming, it's like just wider things that sometimes people with disabilities found it difficult to get certain jobs because, you know, the offices they couldn't get into, various things like this. And the fact that this is sort of like proof that people can work from home is a really good sign that, you know, hey, maybe there should be lower barriers to entry for some of these people, because they don't because at least lower their barriers so that the same as everyone else's, and just give people the freedom to be able to work. Like, I really like the sound of the people working from home 2 days, because like I've been working in my bedroom is basically my office as well, because I live with family, so I don't have my own office or anything. So I think there's something to be said about not working in the same room for 5 days a week and then it being your room on the weekend as well. But I think, it's something about it's a real kind of like, it levels the playing field. And I think also the lockdown has highlighted like some slight other inequalities in terms of like what technology people have, what internet access people have. Like, because I live in like one of the many bubbles around the world, in the UK anyway, that doesn't have fiber optic broadband, and like learning how to overcome that when trying to stream on YouTube, it's super fun. So it's I think it's highlighted a lot of things where, hey, we can improve things, and hey, we've found new inequalities that we weren't looking at properly because everyone just went to work and did things in person.
Yeah, there should be more support for this kind of infrastructure for like internet, even railway systems. Like I'm going to have a rant about this. Railway systems in the UK are very London centric. Like, you're connecting all of the cities to London, but what about the cities in between that, and like the non-London cities? You know, like Manchester to Newcastle, things like that. You know, like there should be support for that, because not everything is in London. As much as I love living in London, I also realize that people outside deserve as much support as we do, especially in a like the UK as a whole is really good at exporting like creative and digital stuff like this, like games or streaming or media. Like, the UK is really good for that, and for that you should have like basic necessities, like, you know, access to good internet, because that's where the money is. You know, that's where the creatives are and the talent are as well.
In terms of finding that balance between being online, being digital, working remotely, playing remotely, socializing remotely, and doing things in person. Like Stella says, there are some things that, you know, that can't substitute for physical, like, in-person interaction. When Molly mentioned VidCon, it brought back some very like strong positive memories of games conventions and that kind of interaction. Ellen, you were the other day you were talking about how meeting new people, rather than like networking with people who you're already familiar with, you know, people you might have already collaborated with, like there's something about physical like interaction, physical you know, social events that really facilitates new people, like finding new voices and meeting new people to collaborate with. And I'm not sure that anyone's cracked how exactly you do that online, like what the online substitute for like VidCon socializing is.
Yeah, because Molly, like, you've actually, like, I bumped into you, I met you at an EA Mirror's Edge Catalyst event.
So
we actually met in Sweden randomly. And then we've seen each other pretty much every year at Summer in the City, which is like a YouTube event in the UK. And then like I've come up and said, oh, hi. And then you've introduced me to like all these Sims people that I may not have stumbled across otherwise. And yeah, I just think it'd be real, like, I've not really had the opportunity to stumble across as many creators other than spending hours on Twitter and seeing what other videos people post on there.
Yeah, it's very true. There's no like mixing really. Like there's been panels and stuff like that, but it doesn't really give anyone like the chance to kind of get really personal and talk about like why they do it. And it tends to be people who are already established. So there's not a lot of like different groups meeting with one another. Maybe we should all just do it. Maybe we should all just get together on like one massive Discord and be like, let's just start a mixer.
Yeah, there's no thing where like everyone just goes to the pub afterwards and then you meet some random person that, hey, we like the same games or the same videos and stuff. Yeah, it's that kind of like, how do you get that organicness of just like stumbling across someone at an event? And I don't know whether we fully cracked that. So I think that's why, like, for me, I would like it to be a mix. Like, I don't want to get rid of events because there is that something like amazing about like like it's really good. I found a lot of people through panels, and I think like online panels like this I think are really good, of like highlighting different people, and different creators, especially, and any like creator specific ones. But it's not that kind of like you meet someone and you hit it off just by having a chat one-on-one at an event when everyone's in a crowd, because it's a bit difficult to do that in a Zoom call.
No, because you spend most of your time going, "Oh, am I muted? Oh, you go."
No,
And
no, you. No, no.
No, you. No, you.
Oh, you. No, sorry.
No. You can do this for like an hour.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to drop in another question since we're getting quite a few, but Ellen, hold that thought because I want to hear what you're going to say as well. Stevie SG says, have there been any studios that have helped with supporting your online meetups? Any you'd shout out? Molly, does that bring anything to mind for you? Any studios that have been particularly supportive?
I mean, I've done a couple, because obviously I like most predominantly work with EA because I play The Sims majorly. So they've done not really like meetups so much, but the events that we would have attended, like we probably would have been at EA Play, and when the new expansion for Eco Lifestyle came out, we probably would have had an in-person event for that. Whereas this time around, they managed to somehow attach the game to our Origin accounts. So we all had like a week of being able to play it and just record content from so it wasn't like we were getting that like meet up and like getting to laugh and joke about the new expansion, but we were able to explore it on our own terms. And like usually at events you only get like 2 or 3 hours to explore a new game, whereas this was on our accounts and they were like, you can play it as much as you want, like you could complete the expansion if you wanted to, for your videos. So that was really cool. And then I also got an opportunity, which I've never done before, and it was terrifying, but they approached me to do a Pride event. So on June the 30th, I was actually streaming Pride in The Sims. So they got the whole like wider community to post their Sims up on a hashtag on the gallery. And then I just went in and downloaded a bunch of people and like gave shout outs to the creators. And we just had like an online Pride, and everyone was telling their coming out stories and what they would have been doing at Pride in the chat. And it felt really lovely just to be able to experience that, even though we couldn't be out like at music festivals and drinking and having a party. We got to do it in a game that we all love that celebrates this kind of stuff. So that was really cool that it felt like an honor when they approached me, because I was like, damn, this is cool. And like, it's also something so important that I care about. And being able to celebrate that with my community was like an honor. So props to EA for that one, because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I love that. That's awesome. Shay, the studios or the people you work with doing presenting work in the before times, are you still working with them now? Like, how are they working with you?
Yeah, so I've done like a couple of like at-homey jobs, which is usually just like sort of podcasts. So I recorded something just talking about my life, and I was like, "You want to know about me? Like, I'm literally no one." That was fun. But then, yeah, like share. Self-deprecating humor. That's how I keep the imposter syndrome at bay. Yeah. Then there was like Salesforce as well, who I'd like sort of done panels with in person, and then we sort of like took a lot of that online. And yeah, like I found that a lot of like non-endemic companies to games have like wanted to sort of not jump on the bandwagon, because that sounds terrible, but they've taken like a very keen interest, and I've sort of been like that voice to help like usher them through and like show them what this space actually looks like from an authentic space, and not just or authentic sense rather, as opposed to like what can you do as a quick cash grab, you know. So that's been really, really interesting to see.
Nice. Should we go for another question? Spartacus Inc., the game influencer, says, my question is, how can we restart our content creation after it became unhealthy, etc.? So has anyone found that like they've developed unhealthy habits? It doesn't even have to apply to content creation. I know I have. But can anyone attest to that, and how they're going to try and break the habit once things go back to normal, maybe.
I mean, yeah, I like I said, a lot of hours into Animal Crossing in like a short space of time, and just with like games in general, I was finding myself like staying up until 4 a.m., which I was like, I'm not doing my GCSEs anymore. I'm not 16. I can't keep doing this. This is bad. So I like what I usually do to kind of snap myself out of that is kind of just take a really, really long break. So now I have not played a single video game in like a couple of weeks, mainly because I've been really busy. But I'm like, now I'm itching to kind of go back to it, and I know that now I'll go back to it like with like a completely different mindset because yeah, I kind of snapped myself out of it before.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of pressure when it comes to content creation, and like feeling like if you've already set yourself up on this pedestal and like people are expecting content. Like for me, I record like pretty much every day, and I try and get videos out at least 5 times a week. And like, especially within the pandemic, when you know people are consuming more, I think you feel that guilt of, but then there's also so much going on in the wider world that I've definitely faced burnout throughout it. And I'm just like, right, I just need to take like a few days off. Like, and I think if you're honest about it, like, I think people forget that one, we're human, like the people who are creating that content are human. Usually I do it fully off my own back. Like I don't have an editor. I edit all of my videos. I upload everything. I make all the thumbnails. So I'm doing that all on me. And then I'm like streaming twice a week for like 3 to 4 hours as well. And so I think it's reminding yourself that you are human and you're not superhuman. You're not a robot who's just made to create content. And then also like reminding yourself that your viewers are also human, and they're probably, as much as they want to see content and want to keep entertained, like they also, like if you're not in the good headspace, you can't create the content that you're one going to be proud of, or two are probably not enjoying. And they can very much tell when someone isn't enjoying something. So I think just taking that step back and being like, I'm going to leave it a few days, be very honest with people. I've always found that that's the best thing to do. Just like be human and just say, look, guys, I'm not really feeling it. Can I take a few days off? And you will probably get supportive responses, which I feel helps anyway, because you're like, oh, thank God. Like now I don't have the weight of the world on my back and I can just like chill for a bit.
When I see content creators do that, I'm like, yes, self-care, great. I have so much admiration for people who do that. So I think that's a good tip.
My friend Hannah put a thing up saying, I'll come back to you, Anissa, sorry. She got an out of office email, and she said she's always so happy for the person that says, sorry, I'm out of office. Like just take time off, set yourself boundaries, and I think it just makes a world of difference. But Anissa, sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh no, I was just going off exactly what you guys were saying with taking time off, because I personally also went through burnout during the pandemic, and my colleagues at the time, they can see me like working at 200%, like putting in so much effort, and I was just so tired every day, but my output was also really low. Like I shouldn't be. It's kind of like when you're running underwater, you know, when you're just putting in so much effort but you're just not moving, that kind of feeling. That is literally just burnout, and I just hated waking up every day trying to face the screen. What I know not a lot of people have this privilege, but I basically took 2 weeks off where I did nothing for 2 whole weeks. The first week, I was still getting like that nervousness, you know, where it's like I'm still thinking about work. You know, I've disconnected myself. I deleted Instagram, Twitter, blah, blah, from my phone. And I just started going out for walks more. But like for the first week, nothing changed. I was still in that burnout phase. And it wasn't until the second week when I actually started feeling like, hey, I kind of want to do stuff. You know, suddenly like you're energized more. I would say the energy comes from exercise. So don't stop exercising, people. Like I know it's really annoying when people are like, just exercise. I'm like, yeah, can you try to something? It hurts. Everything hurts. I hate this. Why would you do this? Anyway, power through that for the first week. I promise you it gets easier. And yeah, I hate that I'm proving everybody right that yes, exercise actually helps. Wow, who would have thunk? But yeah, burnout is a major thing, especially in game dev. You hear so many people trying to push further and further into this, especially people who have day jobs, have side projects, and have X, Y, and Z. Because for some reason, creative people do this, whereas like the one thing isn't enough. They're just like, I need to do this, I need to do that, and they're constantly like trying to reach for, I don't know, like I need to do this so I can win this award. I need to do this so I can get this many followers, and blah blah blah. And that to me is unhealthy, because that's when you're pushing yourself and you're killing yourself for what exactly? You're not happy, and your stuff isn't as good as when you're well rested, well nourished, you know. Like, work on your relationships with people. That's much better than working towards a number online that, you know, is a moving target, by the way. Like, as soon as you reach like what 5,000 followers, suddenly you're sad you're not at 10,000, and blah 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 blah. So
And
yeah,
actually, I
like,
think the social media element of like burnout is really important as well, because I think I mean, I had the same thing where I was just like, I'll have so many spinning plates and I'm like, this is still not enough. And my friend's like, it's 4 a.m. Go to bed. You're working too hard. Even though it's never enough for me. But also, like, we have this thing where we look online and we're like, oh, well, so-and-so is doing X amount of things. I should be doing as many as that if I want to stay as relevant and as successful. But actually, like, you know, we spoke about earlier on, people tend to show like the best and most positive aspects of their life, because why wouldn't they? So you can't compare yourself to anybody, but also they're probably going through the exact same thing. And yeah, you never know. And so it's not healthy to sort of compare yourself in that way at all. Yeah.
You're exactly where you need to be right now. Like, there is no deadline for you to be like as big as whatever. Especially ageism is a thing. We're just like, oh my God, I'm X years old, I should have done this by this age or whatever. That is bull. Like, you shouldn't feed into that. Like, you're exactly where you need to be right now. You're exactly where your journey is yours. You know, your timeline is different from everyone else's.
Anisu, you're so wise. I can see why you have a mentorship scheme.
I'm just saying.
That's
just saying what my therapists are telling me. You know? I'm just saying.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Stella, have you noticed any unhealthy habits in yourself or in your team during the last several months?
Well, when the whole pandemic started, we actually had a talk with the team to lay out what is the worst possibility could happen. For example, that we make sure that the team understand we need to have a routine. So, and also we make sure that the team understand that even though you're staying at home, you should try to sometimes dress up, you know, sometimes have this kind of brush your teeth and do this kind of routine. So before the pandemic happened, we did kind of be cautious, thinking that what might happen. Like, for example, people might be frustrated about communication through online. People might not have routine. People might not going out. There's no social thing. So we kind of did talk to the team to have a little bit more patience and following the routine. And sometimes I remember early when we have a Zoom conference, we even asked the team to stand up to see if everybody dressed up, and some people just sit there and say, "You don't want to see that." so they are like, so we do kind of try to keep there's one thing we try to do is keep as much as you feel like you're engaged in the office, which is difficult, but we try to do that. However, I also can see that some people, they're a lot more like socializing. They need that at work. So we do have a few cases. We need to have one-on-one talk to see what's happening and what do they feel. Some people feel that this is much longer than they expected. A lot of people want to come back to office. So I think at this time period, I think empathy is one of the most important words. Like I think typically we try to make sure that all their opinion being heard, and we try to make sure that we discuss in the level that if they want to share some personal stuff with us or they want to share their struggle, we make sure we have time to do kind of one-on-one. And of course, a lot of things is about, in the beginning, you thought this would be 2 months. Then slowly, you need to kind of presenting to the team that this will be for a little bit. And then we're going to point out the new positive things we learned from the past 6 months. So we're looking forward the next 6 months. So I do see there's a denial stage and then accepting and then now being okay about it. So I think this is the process now, especially for a development team. It is a little bit tougher to not see each other. I remember the first brainstorm session. People were showing the idea, and then some of our team in the office just showing the camera, and the other people on the other camera are saying, you do know that I cannot see that. So there are a lot of things. So there are a lot of things that you need to adopt. But this is also, as I said earlier, that the most difficult time is always create opportunity to actually rethink how you do things. So just keep it positive. I think one of the key things that a lot of us was talking about is try to look at the positive things you can impact. Try not to kind of sink into things you cannot have. So I think that might be some of the things I learned from Nisha, Shay, and Molly's talk when we talk about all the dealing with the stress with a creator and also dealing with the mentorship. So it is a time that we have to look for the bright side.
That's true.
Yeah, to go back to Spartacus's question, how can we restart like in content creation? Like when I feel like I'm getting burnt out with something, I'll try and like end it as soon as possible, because I'm just like, hey, I either take a break or I'll just be like, hey, I'm just gonna round the story up and we'll move on. And then I just find like getting into something that you've maybe always wanted to do and you've never really been brave enough to like try a new game or like try playing with friends or collaborate. I think just focusing on something that you really, really enjoy is the best way to get like restarted in something like first place, and just go back to that, because like I think you feel all of these pressures, but in reality, as long as you're having fun with it, then the possibility of people enjoying that and watching you enjoy it is going to be there. So that's always my biggest piece of advice, just like do what you enjoy.
Yeah, actually come back to that. As many people know that like running the company or starting a company or starting any startup is very tough things. One thing I learned was when before this pandemic, we were like pitching to lots of events, and even though we closed around February, but we also get a lot of rejections in the past few years. So one thing I learned was when I in a group of people, you often see that the person who has most conversation with other people, easier conversation with other people, is when they present the most positive self and not actually kind of sink into their own thoughts. And that way you have more opportunity to open up to talk to people and also have more opportunity to have discussion. So I do agree with Molly that, you know, when things are not working well, just put the negative thoughts in one box and think about something happy, and then it will be easier in life. Yeah.
Friends help you with this. I'm constantly feeling really like bad about myself, and I have a very aggressively supportive friend who shouts at me, feel like, you're the best person ever, you're great, you're fine, you know, you're Anissa Sadusi, you can do anything. I'm like, yes, I can.
But also what Shay was saying earlier, that social media is a good thing that accompany people, but it's also something people always post the best themselves in their social media. So I think sometimes just kind of take a break and do what you like, watching YouTuber, looking at creator doing things. Could be a different perspective. Yeah.
Nice.
Agreed. Definitely less social media and more friends and family. That's the best way.
We have a question from one Pork Woofles, who says, what are your favorite aspects of working in the games industry, or what positive aspects make it different from other industries? So if you've got multiple industry experience, I guess that's one for you. What are your favorite aspects of working in games?
I mean, I used to work in fashion, and it was a lot. And I think what I like about games is that, I guess, and you know, this can be sometimes a bad thing, is that everyone's a nerd. You know, first and foremost, we're here because we're passionate about video games, and so having that as like a baseline sort of like common ground with everybody is really nice. It just makes like, you know, it makes networking a breeze. It makes like getting to know people, you know, so easy. And I think that's nice, just having that, you know, something that's, you know, a big part of my life, gaming, you know, having that as like a common bonding thing with other people is, brilliant.
Can I add a little bit? Yeah. So I do feel that for example, my background is actually not in game. Many years ago, I was recruited to Finland from Rovio, and I started my own company. I think game industry is one of the most interesting industry because it's not defined, and it's still a revolutionary. A lot of new things happening all the time. And most people, they see the beautiful arts and then they see the gameplay, but they didn't understand behind that there was a marketing analytic pipeline. So it is like an industry, super cross-discipline. It's really interesting that when we're actually recruiting people, we do appreciate a lot of people who has more horizontal skill, which is more cross-discipline experience, because that's how you can build fun games and also a relatable game for player. I think that's one thing that game industry, it's not like many other industry, you have more narrow kind of perspective, but they're actually, you're looking at like it's like iceberg. You look at it on the tip, but underneath there's a huge things coming along with that. So it is a very, very interesting industry. I think another part was when you look at the industry just for if there's young talents coming to this industry. One thing is when we look at the team member, especially in the game, you need to be really collaborative. You need to kind of think that how you do the dependency and also work as a creative field. So for our perspective, it's more about how much you can wear multiple hat understanding cross-discipline. That would be the key things that for a lot of developer that we are looking at.
Molly, you're a gaming content creator. Have you ever considered non-gaming content, making that a big part of your schedule, or are games everything to you?
It's weird because like I know a lot of people. I think how it works in gaming, you kind of establish yourself within gaming content, and then if you feel like you've reached kind of where you are, because it again comes down to like burnout, playing the same game over and over again, especially if you like have one main game that you just create content on. And then I think sometimes you do feel that push to be like, okay, maybe I'll start a second channel, maybe I'll do like a more vlog style or a lifestyle. And so I vlog like here or there. So I do I tend to do like thoughts and opinions videos. Like if I'm not really feeling like playing the game, I'll be like, hey, what are the community talking about? Like, what are the ideas that are going on? Like, how could we improve the game? That's always interested me, like hearing different elements of what people want, especially with a game like The Sims, and it's so massive in itself, and there's so many different ways to play it. So I tend to do that, and then I also like vlog events. Like usually if I have like an EA Play, people always ask me like, what's it actually like to be a Sims content creator in these types of scenarios? So I've never felt the need to like go out and start like a fashion channel or a lifestyle channel. But if I feel like comfortable enough and I like want to show off what's going on around it, I will vlog.
Makes sense. Here's a question from Emily, who says, do we think that remote working jobs will continue beyond lockdown restrictions lifting? Which we've sort of covered a little bit now, actually. Lots of discussion around the idea of decentralizing work away from London, major hubs, etc. I feel like we've actually spoken quite a lot about remote working jobs. And does anyone have any further follow-up thoughts on that? Or perhaps we've covered off Emily's question.
I hope the hybrid thing takes off, because that sounds like the best of both worlds. Now that we've tasted the before times and the current times, I want the next step from here is half and half of that, you know, gives everybody a level playing field.
Like I know some people who had that flexibility beforehand, and it would be ideal if more and more people had that flexibility going back into the after times, if you like.
The after.
Lisa in the chat says, how hard is it to start as a girl on YouTube with gaming? Is it underrated? I think you're going to have to interpret underrated as you prefer, because that's all I've got. How hard is it, was it for you, Molly, to start as a girl on YouTube with gaming?
I got quite lucky in the sense that The Sims is seen as quite a predominantly like female, like girl gamer game. So I mean, in that sense, there are way more female creators and like girl creators on like doing Sims content. So with that, for me, it didn't feel quite as terrifying. Pushing myself out into other games is where I was like, oh, is this gonna like because I have Simmer in my name as well, like it's such a brand for me. I did start to get comments that like, you're a Sims player, like you don't play other games. And I'm like, no, I do. Like I play plenty of other games. It's just that Sims has been my main focus for a while. So I think that was where it got to me, where I was like, am I opening up like a can of worms that I just don't want to experience? But I think, again, as long as you're playing games that you enjoy and you like know that you can bring your own personal like touch to it, and I think that's what's really cool about like watching like fellow girls who are gamers. Like there's so many different perspectives, and like everyone has their own twist or their own story, and like they all have their own experience with different games, and it's really cool just to be able to go see it and not see like a white cis straight male playing a game where they're constantly like represented, and seeing what girls can pick out in those stories and like how they relate to it. That's like my favorite thing about doing panels like this and talking to other girls about gaming. Like you feel so, I think you feel underrepresented, but then when you actually go out and like look for that content, it is there. We may not be in the top 50 Twitch streamers or YouTube channels or trending pages, but if you go out there to look for fellow girls, we're out there, and there's some pretty like dope content to be shared.
I'm not a creator, but the vast majority of my work exists on YouTube, and especially like in the sim racing world, it is very, very male dominated, because of the ties to like Formula One. And yeah, very quickly I was like, these are some very specific insults. So great, new ways to hate myself. No, I'm kidding. The way I sort of protected myself against this, which it probably sounds quite cynical, is there's nothing that those people can say about me that I haven't already thought about myself. And that was how that was the armor I kind of shielded myself with. And then I just stopped reading the comments as well. I'd kind of skim over the nice ones, and then the really bad ones, I was like, just gonna pretend those don't exist. And that was it. It shouldn't have to be that way, honestly. It really shouldn't have to be that way. But yeah, that's how I got through it.
When I first started, I printed off like all my nice comments and just put them like in a journal. So I was like, if I ever need, because I was like 19 and so insecure at the time.
That's
so
a good thing.
Yeah. So I was just like, right, positive affirmations. I'm just gonna read these when I need to. And then it got me through like the first 2 years of creating.
Like you say, I was 19. That's an extremely emotionally mature thing to do. To be like, look, I understand that I'm going to get a lot of hate online, and like it shouldn't be the way. And there are some fantastic moderation tools that we use a lot on our channels, and I use on my personal channel. But yeah, like just because our brains remember the bad comments the most. So to make yourself, to train yourself to focus on the good ones is really difficult. So I think, that's a really clever thing to do. Sorry, you were going to say something as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like, similarly on the game dev side, like, there's this preconception that women don't know what they're doing, or even women of color specifically are like, they're not meant to be there, or like, you're only there because you're a diversity hire and blah blah blah. And it's annoying. Number one, it's annoying to hear, because I know for a fact that like all the women in video games right now are here because because of their perseverance, because they just refuse to quit. And on as a thing from like YouTube, where you see a lot of these like game dev videos, they tend to be mostly male, kind of like either reviewing or breaking down mechanics or just talking about development in general. Most of the voices are male, and I think there definitely should be more female voices, just to show, look, we know what we're talking about, we know what we're doing. There's things that a lot of podcasts right now are trying to amplify female voices as well. Just to be like, look, we're here, we exist, and we know what we're doing. It's tiring that we need to constantly like prove ourselves at every waking hour, even on just Twitter or something. Like, it's like, oh, you play games, name 5 or something like that. It's like, all right, sure. Yeah.
Maybe I'll add a few things I learned. I have very struggled. Like, I started the company for 5 years, and in the first few years we were really struggling for funding. And we were building for a few people until, I think there were many months for 1.5 years. Every month we're looking for funding. But if there are a few things I learned, that's one thing female are really great. It's we're super critical to ourselves. Why is that great? It's because we're able to actually learn the things that learn the skill that we didn't have before because we're so critical. But of course, there's a boundary not to be overly critical, but also filter down the necessary comments, necessary things for you to improve. So if you think about it, that years ago, pitching in front of investor, pitching in front of partnership, my hands start shaking. I'm like really stressed, but you get lots of rejection 100 times. You will learn something eventually. The one thing great about being a female is we have a lot more. We're able to relate it to what's kind of possible mistake we make. How do we actually improve? But also on the other hand, we are much more have a lot of sympathy and empathy about what's surrounding. So running a company become a different things because at the end, the creative people, you do want to have a good team that can work together. So I would say that just a little bit last word to all the female the fighter that there's a lot of opportunity for us and it's a lot of room and you just have to trust yourself. And a lot of kind of self-doubt is actually a path of growing. So I wish everybody luck on that. Yeah.
I love all those answers. Thank you so much. We do have time. We've got so many questions, sorry, but we've been giving such fulsome, candid, important answers that I didn't want to leave them short. But we do have time for maybe another question. Lucy says, question for the panel: has the lockdown changed your relationship with your audience, both for content creation and game dev? Now, Molly, you sort of talked a little bit about this already, the way your community and the way you and your community have been there for each other. Does anyone have anything to say further on that? Yeah, go for it, Molly.
Yeah, so we've just grown stronger and stronger. I mean, numbers wise, which is probably like the least important part of it, but just like being able to chat with one another, and I see like them making friends within like my Discord, and they come on every day and wish each other like have a good day, like hope everyone's doing okay. And there's always like an ear to listen, even from strangers online who you've met through someone's like YouTube comments. It's really cool to see. So I would just say it's brought everyone closer together, really.
Yeah.
On Outside Xbox and Outside Extra, our community have been really supportive, and I get very emotional when they're grateful because
Yeah.
I mean, we do this, we have a great time doing it, but when anyone says thank you, it's very moving to be thanked for doing the kind of thing you like doing anyway. So that's,
and I'm just like, no, thank you for like dedicating like half an hour of your life to watching one of my videos. Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. It feels like a real privilege to be able to like sit in one spot and stream a game that I am enjoying and like have someone be like, thanks for doing that. I'm like, no, thank you for making this like a viable career option for people. Like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think it's been like a huge help, like hearing lovely things being said to you. But has anyone else like felt the same? Like, Stella, have you felt like you've had to maybe adapt in some way, or
You mean adopted in like the world?
well, because sorry, Sam.
No, go on, Jane. I
was going to say, for the game developers among us who don't actually have games that are in the wild being played right now, that you're both working on your super secret projects. I suppose it's a different question because your audience as game developers aren't the players just yet. So I don't know how do you engage on social media with, I suppose, Anita, in your case, like the Limit Break mentees? How is your relationship with the mentors and mentees that you work with? How has that changed?
So we have our own little Slack channel where everybody talks about stuff together. And it's a lot of just open questions, mostly like, hey, we're having this issue. Does anybody have any ideas? That kind of talk, And I think it's helped a lot with isolation, because obviously with lockdown, the whole theme is isolation. You're feeling isolated from your friends, from your colleagues, from so-and-so. And like what Limit Break offers is the option for you to ask questions, to be open, and to be quite honestly, to be vulnerable, because you can't really do that, say, on Twitter. It's too big of a public platform to be like, I'm feeling a little bit but it's a safe space where you can just talk, and honestly, and like, because we're all in this together, we're all in the same boat, in the same storm, really, and like we could offer you sometimes it's not even like real answers. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, I feel you. It's a bit shit, isn't it? You know?
Just empathy and sympathy and
Yeah.
like just relating. I think it builds like not just between like a creator and their audiences, but between people who work in the industry, people who don't, people who work in the industry and who are trying to get into the industry, as the mentors and mentees, and like, it's just knowing that we're all in it together.
Yeah, it's about being heard.
Huge
You know,
thing.
like
it's yeah.
There we go. Hey, we did it. Only took us an hour and a half.
Stella, I think it comes for your situation. It reminds me a little bit of what you were saying at the top of the show about how you've learned about your potential audience, about your potential players for your social MMO. And it sounds like there's actually been a lot of, it sounds a bit sciencey, but a lot of like data gathering. You've learned quite a lot about the people who are going to be playing your game when it does come out.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because we really look into how the social media behave. Like all the social media people have been playing, we actually have 6 to 7 different archetypes of players. If you think about social gaming, it's really not about momentary, because everybody behave differently depending on the community. When the people are more responsive, or you're kind of explorer, or are you a socializer? So I think in the future, when people are looking at gaming, it's just not for one audience, because you cannot really specialize one persona. Social gaming is really about like a community, how one chemistry react to the other chemistry. And that's what we feel that the future social gaming should be focusing on. Like not only for one person, but tailor-made for a lot of people, more like a platform thinking. Yeah.
How about you, Shay? Has your audience for your presenting work, has that changed? Have you changed your relationship with them?
Yeah, I mean, my audience used to be like other people who like knew a lot about games, but now it's like, yeah, like I said, like sort of like non-endemic companies and them going, games, are they really terrible? And I'm like, no, actually they're fantastic.
Next question.
Yeah, literally like kind of sociable tool. And yeah, that change has been really nice, because I'm, you know, like introducing people to the gaming space for the first time in a lot of cases. And yeah, it's just nice kind of going back down like on a trip down memory lane, and you know, looking at what got me into gaming and like kind of sharing that with other people, which is really, really lovely.
Amazing. Well, that is literally all the time we have for today, and then some. I'm going to say you can check out all of these amazing speakers, their work, and check out what they're doing online in the description of this video. We'll make sure that all that stuff is shared. But we are well over time, because we have been having such an interesting, fascinating discussion, so rewarding and valuable. Thank you for your time, everybody. And I think we're going to have to say goodbye now. So
thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Bye.
Have a lovely YouTube gaming week.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.